Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another installment of Jantmor Interviews. I'm your host, Josh, aka Jantmor. Today, I'll be speaking to the legendary Steve Blum, the voice of literally thousands of characters. And can I get a round of applause for this amazing and talented legend? Hi, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. Yay. Okay, hang on. Let me make a quick adjustment here. Technology is not my friend today.
Not mine either, so don't worry about it.
How are you, buddy?
I'm great. How are you? I'm sorry. This is another Roger Craig Smith situation. I'm stuttering all over the place.
I have that with Roger also all the time.
Yes, but before I get into this, I would just like to say it's an absolute honor and a privilege to be able to have you on right now, just to be speaking to you. I've tried to get you on for a while now, and I remember just writing down in my notebook, I was just like, I'm gonna get him on. And I reached out, I want to say, I think in October, and it didn't fall through, and I was like, oh, this isn't gonna happen. So I just kind of gave up on it. And then the funniest thing, I think you'll think this is pretty cool, I was writing down in my notebook for another interview I was doing, and your email popped up just right there, and I thought it was a prank, and I was like, oh, whatever. And I texted you, and I saw a little thing under the bottom, and I was like, this is really him. And I called my friends, hyperventilating, like freaking out. I threw stuff at the wall. I was like freaking out. So I was just really excited to be doing this with you, and I'm just really glad you're here, and thank you so much for coming, and I hope you enjoy your time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that, man.
Some cool things I was looking into while researching some questions to ask you is that you originally wanted to be a musician, actually playing in an R&B band, opening up for heavy metal shows. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this was back in the 80s. Sorry, I'm just getting some air into the room here. This place gets pretty stuffy. Yeah, back in the 80s, I was playing in an R&B band for fun. I used to really be following music as a path originally. And it started just because I was playing in a little coffee house. I just picked up a guitar in a coffee house where somebody else was playing. And this guy came up to me afterward and asked me if I'd be interested in playing rhythm guitar in an R&B band. And I really didn't have a lot of experience with R&B. I loved R&B, but I didn't really have a lot of experience. And he said, it's just going to be fun. You're just going to have a good time. You don't have to know anything really to start off. And he was a guy who was from Berklee School of Music. And so he was really the mastermind behind it all and wrote out all our parts for us. And I just kind of showed up, and I was the token Caucasian guy in a multiracial, multi-ethnic, amazing band. Started out as, I think, 5 people, and then we ultimately ended up something like a 14-piece stage band with horn section and pyrotechnics on stage. It was crazy. And so I just did it for fun at first, and I realized pretty early on that one of the main reasons that I was brought into the band was not because of my musical skills. It was because I had a truck and I had a day job, and I could haul equipment and I could pay for the pay-to-play gigs up front. And so I still went along for the ride just because I thought it was fun and exciting, and music was a big part of my life at the time. And we weren't that great. We were okay. We actually got to the point we were nurturing a couple of record deals, and I don't know how that happened, but they fell through because the leader of the band was just a little too crazy and a little too attached to some things, so the deals would fall through, or the A&R guy would get fired, and I ended up spending all of my savings on the pay-to-play gigs, having all my equipment stolen a bunch of times, and I just got real disillusioned with the music business. But during those days, it was pretty fun. Our main place to play was the Troubadour, which still stands today. It's a legendary place in Hollywood. We were there probably every 2 weeks, and we would go door to door selling tickets for our shows. And so we ultimately built a following, and we built a big following. We'd have a line around the block opening for heavy metal and hair bands, and they would hate us. We were the only R&B band in town, and we were a better draw than they were, so they would sabotage our equipment and try to start trouble in the alley afterward. I mean, it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough back then. So that lasted for about 6 years. We did a bunch of shows all over town. We played the whole circuit all over town. And finally, I got my equipment stolen one last time, and that was it. I was done. And so I just kind of walked away, and I didn't really look back. And it soiled me on the music industry, and it kept me from really pursuing that any further. And I still have all my guitars. I have one on the wall behind me here and a whole closet full of them. And I just picked them up again for the first time in earnest in like 35 years. And started playing and took a new songwriting class with these guys called the Corin Brothers, who toured with Pink and Coldplay and Rod Stewart. And they helped me through the songwriting classes, like a 6-week class. And I wrote 2 new songs, and I may be doing an album at some point. So we'll see. It's coming back. I'm bringing music back in. So it's kind of fun to revisit that.
That is so freaking cool. I don't know if you can see it, but that's my guitar right there in this little black bag and secured up. And I originally didn't want to play guitar. I asked my mom for drums, and she yelled at me saying, "I will never get you drums because they're so loud." So she bought me the guitar, and I love playing. I play whenever I can. I have a lot to do, so school and stuff, and I play whenever I can. But I love guitar so much. It's such a cool thing. And I remember I saw a video, because I took your voice acting classes, which is a whole other thing that I remember I took them because I do want to get into voiceover, but I remember, what if Steve sees me, right? And he brings me in, like one of the people brings me in, and he sees me, and he'd be like, "Oh, I know that name before. Oh, I know that face." And then he'll like come on, but I never got brought on, so it never came true. But,
oh, dude, there's always time. The class is still going, so come on back in.
Yeah, I saw that you have someone coming up this Tuesday, if I'm correct.
We have Lorraine Newman coming in on Tuesday. Yeah, from Saturday Night Live. She is amazing and a phenomenal voice actor too. So on camera, she does everything. Writer, she just wrote a new book. Yeah, she's incredible. She's one of my heroes in the industry. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, so she'll be in class on Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time at bloomboxstudios.com. There's my plug.
Another thing I found out, which is pretty funny, the first time you performed for Wolverine, which was in XMen Legends, you farted during making the script. Cutting notice.
Oh, you did your research here. Yes.
I did. Yes. So, how often does that happen, or was that a one-time thing, or like?
Oh, dude, that was definitely not a one-time thing. It was surprising. The first time, I think it was the very first time, we'd gotten through most of the dialogue, and we got to the point where we do what we call a sound set at the end, where we're doing the punches and the kicks and the fighting stuff. And the first time I took a real hard swipe as Wolverine, I just went like that. And for some reason, that action created something in the stomach and pushed out a. And I was trying to hide it. I was just playing it off to the engineer. There's a whole room full of people behind the glass on the other side. And I said, "Oh, I think there was a tech on that line. Do you mind if I just do another one?" I left it at that. The next time I played Wolverine, I don't remember what the incarnation was. I've played him in so many different projects, but it happened again during a fight scene. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to say anything this time. I'm going to leave that in there, and I'm going to make this kind of a little thing that people can hunt for at some point. So pretty much, I would think that pretty much in every incarnation of Wolverine, except the ones where I'm working with a cast, because then I'll try to control a little bit more so I don't soil the room. But if most of the projects where I was in the room by myself, there's pretty much a guarantee that there's at least one good quality fart in there. So, yeah.
Y'all look for
that's
that
your
fart,
Easter egg, guys.
Steve Blum.
There's your Marvel Easter egg, bub. Nice. Smells
All
like
right.
eggs too.
That is so. When I heard that, I was like, because I hear all the time when voice actors like go in the booth, because that it creates like you're doing things with your body, and I can like push things out, so to say. So I just think it's pretty funny to hear that. But
yeah. We did a whole class called full body voiceover, where I'm a very, very physical actor. Fred Tatasciore is like that too, where when we're throwing punches and you're hearing it in a cartoon or a video game, we're literally throwing those punches. We're not hitting anything, of course, and we're doing it around the microphone so it doesn't affect the audio quality, but we are literally using the whole body to do that. And for anybody who has boxed or done anything physical like that, that's going to affect your core to some degree. And so, yes, it's going to affect your intestinal tract and everything else. You're going to get surprises if you're doing it right, I think.
My first official question to you is, you come from a family of entertainers?
No. No, my dad was a doctor. He didn't want me to do this at all. He thought I was crazy for doing this. No, as far as I know, there are no other entertainers in my family, except I think there's a random aunt by marriage or something that was an actor or something. But oh no, I'm the black sheep of the family. I was the one who went down that terrible path of entertainment that there's no future in. So yeah, it took a lot of convincing to get my parents to even accept the fact that was a possibility for a career choice.
I hear that a lot with voice actors when they talk about, or just actors in general, they talk about how a lot of the times when they don't come from that background of people in this industry and doing their thing, that a lot of the times their parents thought they were going to do something else or didn't want them to do it at all. I remember I was talking to Mark Ralston's Deathstroke in Batman Arkham Origins, and he was talking about how his father was like, very like, no, don't do this. You got to be a doctor. Go to school. Don't do that. And I was like, that must suck, because like this industry is not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, I don't think ever. I mean, you know, we have court jesters and stuff like that. You always have people trying to entertain and keep people engaged. So this is not going anywhere soon. I mean, over the course of this, you know, awful pandemic, you know, video game sales have gone up, you know, streaming sales numbers have gone up. So this industry shows no sign of slowing down anytime soon. And it's a perfect opportunity to get into it because of all the projects that are coming out. I know there are tons of things that you're in that you probably can't even talk about right
now.
I'd
have to kill you.
Because of NDA and stuff like that. And there's just so much stuff going on in this industry that people is ripe for the taking for a lot of new people. Yeah. So that's very exciting. What are some, I was looking into your past and stuff, and I found this out, but you could tell the audience, what are some childhood adversities that you faced that you would say helped make you who you are?
Oh, that's a great question. I was super insecure as a kid, very average or below average at pretty much everything, sports, art, math, everything. I was probably just below average, I felt. I was overweight for many, many years of my life and bullied for many, many years of my life. I had dislocating kneecaps in junior high, so I couldn't do sports. And I had parents who really didn't believe that entertainment was a viable thing to go into. So I had a lot of challenges. And I think that actually made me a lot stronger and a lot more passionate to go after the thing that I loved. And I found, and I didn't even know that I wanted to be a voice actor. I didn't know that I wanted to do anything in entertainment except music, because I thought that was a way to get girls back in the day. But it made me happy. Voiceover made me happy at a time in my life, especially at a time in my life when I was probably 40 years old when I went into it full time, where nothing else was going right. Everything else that I had tried just didn't feel right. And it was a struggle, and it felt like work that I was going to dread doing. And I had a lot of friends who already had careers, were making a lot more money than I was, and they hated going to work every day. And their excuse for that was that, yeah, but I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to, you know, be able to have the life that I want. I'm going to be able to travel, and I'm just going to suffer in my job. And I thought, well, that's kind of counterintuitive to me, because we spend most of our lives as adults in our jobs. So why not do something we love? And after being poor for so many years, I was good at that. I was really good at being poor, eating cheap, living a normal blue collar life, that I thought, you know, if this is the thing that makes me happy, I don't need to be rich. I don't need to have a lot of money. I don't care if I'm famous. This thing makes me happy. And I was doing anime at the time for several years. And so I thought that, you know, this is the thing that doesn't make me think about the insecurity. It doesn't make me think about the bullying. It doesn't make me think that I'm less than, because I'm doing something that makes people happy. And that was the driving force that really got me to where I am now. I just did it for the fun of it and for the love of it. And I always encourage my students, don't do this for fame or fortune. If that's your motivation, do something else. As long as it makes you happy, just do whatever makes you happy. So
I remember, to go back to your bullying, because I was bullied too. And I actually got bullied out of something that I really liked doing when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I remember I used to love tap dancing. I was a big tap dancing kid. I could, if my mom ever remembers to give me the picture of me tap dancing, she would come to my recitals. I remember one time I had like my head, I was feeling dizzy. I was like, no, I can't miss this performance. And I played while I was dizzy. But I remember one time this person came up to me and they were like, why do you dance? That's very feminine of you. Stop dancing. You're awful. And I remember feeling so bad that I told my mom, I'm not doing this anymore. Can we stop? Like, can I stop doing this? And I stopped doing it altogether. And in a way, I kind of regret that because I love tap dancing, and now like I can't even remember how to do it, or like where to start, like where I'd even start. And it's true, like do what you love. Like don't do something you dread every day to make you just feel the worst. Because I have a lot of people I know personally who are doing something where they're just like, I hate this. I'm so tired. I just want to break. And I'm just like, I feel so bad for you. Like, please do something else. Like, please do something else, because I don't want to live a life where I'm dreading what I do. That's awful. Like, life is short as it is. I mean, there's a ton going on around the world, as we can see. But, you know, just live it to the fullest and do what makes you happy. So I completely agree with that.
Absolutely. You got to tap dance again, dude. Take that up.
I know, yeah. I really do, though. Like, I'm going to look into that because I miss it so much. It was so much fun. I remember getting on my little tap dancing shoes, and I loved Happy Feet as a kid. So I guess that's why I remember watching Happy Feet, and I was like, I have to do this. So I got into tap dancing because of that movie. But
wow.
Now that leaves the elephant in the room, or the big question: how did voice acting get introduced into your life, since you really didn't even plan to do this?
Yeah, it was a real happy accident. I was working at a film company as my day job as a runner and PA, production assistant for this low-budget film company. We made sci-fi and monster movies. It was a company that made Reanimator and Ghoulies and Puppet Master movies, all that stuff. And I got a gig to support my music habit at the time. I was playing in clubs at night, and I needed something. I had a family that I had to support. So I got this crappy job at a film company. I was working in the mailroom and as a driver and doing whatever they wanted me to do. I did all the crap work that nobody else wanted to, basically. And the head of the mailroom, this guy named Victor Garcia, was casting for a Japanimation show. And I kind of knew Speed Racer and a few other Japanese things that were happening at the time, but this was early 80s. So it really wasn't much on my radar. And I wasn't interested in acting at all. Everybody else in the building was an actor. And in LA, where I live, pretty much everybody wants to be an actor anyway. I didn't care. It wasn't interesting to me at all. But what he did say was that if I would come out on the weekend, all of our friends would be there, because I knew a lot of people from the industry, and they would feed us. They would give us free breakfast and free lunch. And I thought, I'm a starving artist, and so hell yeah, I'm going to go to a fun studio and watch a bunch of people do weird stuff and eat free pizza. Yeah, I'm going to do that. So went to this crazy studio that they called the Cave, because half of the studio was built into the side of a hill, and it really was carved out in the cave. One whole wall of the studio was a cave. The other side of it was in a tree house. It was adjacent to this giant tree. And the guy who owned the studio was this rock musician, super long hair, crazy guy, and barely wore clothes. The studio wasn't outfitted with equipment or soundproofing properly. In fact, everything that we recorded in that studio, we had to redo ultimately. But I went up into the studio and I got to watch all of the other actors audition for this. It was the type of thing where you go and you audition, and if you get the job, you work that day. And I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to work, but this is going to be fun. I'm curious. I'm just curious. And so went into the studio, and the first thing they had me do in my audition was to do a creature voice. And they showed me an image on screen. It was a show called The Guyver. And they showed me an image of this creature called a zoonoid ripping the arm off of another zoonoid and I think beating him to death with it or something. They just said, what would that sound like? And I went, oh, I do that all the time. I can do that. So I just went up to the microphone and I just went, and it matched what was going on screen perfectly, first time. And they said, whoa, have you done this before? And I said, done what? I don't even know what I did. I just roared. And they said, no, but you matched the image. That's dubbing. And I said, I don't know. No, I've never done that before. And they said, do it again. And so I did another creature and whatever. And then I realized, because of my musical training and my sense of timing, I was able to match lip flaps even on human characters. So they tried me out on a human character. I didn't think I'd book anything, but they hired me on the spot. And I ended up doing zoonoids for that episode. And they brought me back in the next week. And I think it was a week or two later, I ended up booking the role of the main bad guy on the whole series. And it was just a natural, easy thing for me to do. I don't know why it was easy for me, but it just felt like a natural thing to do. And so I never stopped doing it. I just did it for fun. It was terrible money, but back then, an extra $50 in my pocket meant the difference between eating that week or not. And and I really liked the people too. The people who were working on this stuff were just good people, fun people to be around, super creative. It was all the best elements of the film company that I was working at without all of the garbage that came with that, and all the garbage that came with the music industry also. It was just fun, period. And they paid me for it. So I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to do this some more. And so on the weekends and the evenings, every now and then they would call me and have me audition over the phone. There was a guy named Kevin Seymour and Yutaka Maseba, who Yutaka is still in the industry. Kevin passed away, sadly, years ago. But they would audition me over the phone and bring me in at weird hours whenever I could fit it in around my work schedule. And I did anime for, I don't know, 7-10 years before I started even considering that I was an actor. I just thought I was having fun. And it wasn't until many years later, after we did Cowboy Bebop, that I was sitting on a panel with Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, who is now my fiance, was the voice director on the show and played Julia on the show. So Spike got the girl in the end. So that worked out really nicely. But we were sitting on this panel in front of like 1,000 people, and everybody was talking about their acting training and what got them there. And I said, well, I'm kind of the only non-actor on this whole dais up here. There are, I think, 10 actors up there. And she goes, hold up. She goes, what do you think you've been doing for the last 10 years? And I said, I don't know, it's voice stuff or this stuff. She goes, you're an actor, you idiot. And I said, oh, I'm a voice actor. Oh, that's what I'm doing. Okay. I didn't know I could call myself that yet because I'm just working on these little shows. And Bebop was just starting to get steam at that time. And all the other shows were just kind of a niche thing that I wasn't sure if anybody was really watching. I wasn't paying attention to that. And then all of a sudden it exploded. And I realized, oh, wait, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I could parlay this into something else. And so that kind of perked my ears up. But it wasn't until I was 40 years old and I was an executive at that same film company. I stayed with that film company for 14 years. I became an executive with an office on Sunset and Vine, or Hollywood and Vine, a beautiful floor-to-ceiling windows in there, and traveling to the Cannes Film Festival. I had a 6-figure income working for this film company, had people that I was managing, and I hated going to work every day doing that. But this little thing, the little voiceover thing that I was doing on the side was so much fun that I thought, well, you know, maybe I could do this. I don't know. And then I booked the role of the guy who said, "Oh, thank heaven" on the 7-Eleven commercials. I was that guy. I don't know if you're old enough to remember those, but at the end of all the commercials, say, "Oh, thank heaven." I was that guy. And so I started doing a bunch of those commercials. And then 2 weeks after I was hired for that, I quit my job at the film company. And I thought, okay, all my friends who are doing commercials are buying houses and cars, and they've got a really great financial life going. And I thought, this is it. This is my escape. I can finally do voiceover full time. And then the union went on strike after I quit my job. And I had kids by that time. And I thought, I'm in big trouble now. And this was a big mistake. And I'm not a voice actor. I can't do this for a career. And so I got 3 other little jobs to support my voiceover habit. I loved it that much. And just kept continuing to do that because it was fun. And eventually I got a good agent. And eventually I started booking video games. A lot of them through LucasArts at the time. Which is now taken over by Lucasfilm for their video games. And they kind of helped me to build my confidence back up and to realize, oh my God, I can actually make money. I was making $1,000 on a video game. At that time it's probably $500 on a video game. That's amazing. I can live off of that. That's great if I do enough of them. And so eventually I was able to quit the other jobs, let them go little at a time, and do voiceover full time, and have never looked back. That was a very long answer to a very short question. Sorry.
Oh no! I love hearing you speak on it. That's what I love doing, is just learning everyone's story to get where they are, and just how they become the person that they are. Like, you're a legend in this field. Like, I hope you realize, like, you're in the Guinness Book of World Records. I kept saying that wrong for the longest time. For the most prolific, like, video game voice actor. There's not a video game that I've played that you haven't been in. So, like, it's just so awesome to hear where you started from, just kind of like, you know, small, humble beginnings to just like this giant. I mean, you have your own studio now. Who was I talking to? I think it was Tom Givens, and he was talking about your home studio and how he was like, Steve could really have people like coming in and out of here if he really wanted to as a little thing. And how big and how much you've grown is just it's very inspiring to me. You're inspiration to me for a lot of things. And it's just really so awesome to get to talk to you again, because like you've been in so much I grew up with. Like you were in Chowder, and I don't know if you remember that role because you were in one episode in Chowder. But Chowder is the reason I have my sense of humor. I'd watch that show every day because I love this. Like I have to talk to everyone on that show because of how that formed me as a human. I remember going to my friend's house and just watching Chowder for like hours on end, and you were a part of that. It sucks that show, and I remember when that show ended, I was sick. I started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, it's over. That was so sad.
Wow.
Yeah, but that show really made me who I am. Spectacular SpiderMan. It's just really an inspiration for me as someone who is starting out from something small, like doing this on a phone. I just recently got a computer and a freaking microphone. You know how long I've been doing this without a microphone? It's just so cool to see where people started. So yeah, I appreciate the long answers for short questions. So yeah,
it's my pleasure. And you know, I still consider myself to be a grunt in this industry. I work really hard, and I still consider myself to be like a blue collar worker. You know, I work really, really hard at this. I audition every day more than I do anything else. And I think some people who are just getting into this business think that you achieve a certain level of success in this business, and that's it. People are just going to call you and offer you stuff, and you don't really have to work that hard. That's not the case for most of us. Most of us still work just as hard, if not harder, once we do achieve some degree of success than we did in the very beginning. And so that's one of the things I always caution my students. If you don't want to work hard, this is not business for you, because it's something that you can never take for granted. We get fired every day. We get fired after every job, basically, and have to reapply every single day with auditions. So it's a humbling experience if you keep your head straight about it, and I think that's what creates longevity for a lot of the best people in this industry, is that they're willing to work that hard and they don't take it for granted. We're all super grateful. So thank you for saying that. That's cool.
Oh yeah, no, I like I said, I've been waiting for this moment. Like I said, I was so nervous. Like I had to call my friend to calm my nerves. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He was like, nothing." And he's like, "Josh, why do you sound like that?" I'm like, "Nothing. I don't sound like nothing." And then we just talked. He's like, "Just calm down. You're good." Because you know, even though I've done this God, I'm coming up on a year of me doing this from the start of the pandemic, I still get nervous. Like it doesn't matter who. I'm so nervous. Like I feel the butterflies in my stomach, and I pace back and forth around my room, and I dance, and I do jumping jacks. I have to get ready to get this. So I'm really grateful to one of my best friends who's probably watching right now. But he really he helped make that edit to help promote the interview last minute. So I'm really grateful for him. He's a really good guy, and he really helped me calm my nerves down. But
that's awesome. But you know what? Your passion is infectious. That I call it's nerves or whatever, but it's the root of that is passion. You love this stuff, and that is infectious for all of us. I think for everybody watching, and I'm sure if you guys want to comment on that, it's infectious, right? He's amazing.
Thank you.
These are my favorite kinds of interviews, with somebody who really cares. You know, we do a lot of interviews, and sometimes they don't care. They are given our name by somebody who does care, and they go, okay, I guess I got to get them on the show. But you're passionate about this, and that makes a difference for all of us, because we do it for that reason too. So thank you
absolutely
for being excited.
Yeah, oh man, I'm very energetic too. So like, you talk to my friends at school and they're like, "Josh, it's 7 a.m. Why are you so hyper?" And I'm like, "I can't come down. I just will go." I'm very energetic. So.
Don't ever lose that. Don't ever lose that joy. We need more joy in the world. So keep doing it. Keep dancing. Get some tap shoes under that. Damn it.
I will. Just because of you, I will look at the tap dancing classes. I will tell you how those go.
Good.
Since you've been in this industry for a long time now, how would you say you've personally grown as a VA in your own words?
As a VA? Well, as a VA, I think I won't separate that from being an actor, because I think that there is a lot of people try to make that distinction between voice actor and actor. I think as an actor, I've gotten better just because I've been willing and more aware of the power of vulnerability. I talk about this all the time, but in Cowboy Bebop, in the movie, there was a moment in there where Spike became very vulnerable, in a jail cell with Elektra. They're talking about the pain of loss and their loves and that sort of thing. And to access that, I actually had to go to a place of personal pain and personal loss. And I didn't have to do that for anything prior to that experience, because most of my characters were big, broad creatures or soldiers or, you know, kind of crazy characters, or even really cool characters that I wanted to be. I got to play pretend there, but I didn't really have to access anything that would necessarily hurt to get to that point. And so once I was willing to go to that place, it changed everything for me. It changed me as an actor. It changed me as a person. It made me more aware of my impact on people and my actions, and also allowed other people's vulnerabilities to be accessible to me too. I cared more. I began to care more. So I think that's probably the biggest shift that happened in me, and that was pretty early on, and I work on that all the time. I keep that in mind all the time to stay vulnerable. And also the other thing I would say is that after going to conventions all over the world and seeing how this work impacts people, stuff that we do in little rubber rooms like this actually impacts people all over the world in a really positive way, it gave me a sense of humility that what we're doing here actually is doing something positive in the world. My dad wanted me to be a doctor, and I thought, well, that's how I can really change lives. What I didn't realize is this work can actually it can honestly change lives. It can lift people up out of really difficult situations, really difficult times in their lives. And so I keep that in the back of my mind with every single audition, every single job that I do, even if I'm playing the most heinous villain, ripping people apart and doing awful things. In the back of my mind, my intention behind that is that somebody will see a positive out of that situation. And there's magic behind that. I don't know what that is, but going to conventions and hearing stories from soldiers that were in Afghanistan that had active duty in combat, and they would come back after seeing heinous things on the battlefield. They would come back to their tent at night and want to play Call of Duty with their buddies at night. And I didn't understand that. It was so counterintuitive to me. Why would you want to play something that's bloody and awful, especially with a character like mine? It was this Marine that was just out to slaughter gut bags. Why would that make you feel better after you've been doing that all day for reals? And they said because it made them feel like home. They got to play with their buddies, and that's what they would do with their buddies. And they were able to make that distinction, that compartmentalization of play versus the horrors of real life. And that sense of play, even if it was in a horrific kind of situation, gave them a sense of home and a sense of security and a sense of camaraderie with their buddies back home that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And they told me that it would get them through things. It would keep them from committing suicide in some cases. It was crazy. And so I think about that every time I step into the booth, and I'll almost do like a little silent prayer before I go up to the microphone that, you know, I'm going to put some really positive energy into this no matter what character it is. And somehow that magically translates out there into the world, I believe. I don't know. That's just my own thing, but
I can personally attest to that. I really can. I've been through a lot of dark periods in my life. When my father passed 2019, I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, I was broke. I was really hurt. And then I played like Call of Duty, zombies, and I played as Dempsey. Ironically, I was playing as Dempsey, and he's just killing zombies, and like that made me feel so much better because I didn't know what to do. I was so confused and mad, and just that character really just like allowed me to like go just like feel, you know what I mean? Like it made me feel comfortable in the way, like how I'm feeling. And just entertainment in general has just helped me through so much in my life. When I'm feeling having a bad day, I'll just wrap in my nice little blanket right here on the side and just watch a nice little cartoon or a regular show or Adventure Time, and just sit down and just think and be like, let me breathe and just relax. And you know, entertainment has helped me more than I think a lot of people are willing to give it credit for, if that makes sense. So,
boy, does it ever! You're giving me goosebumps, man. You're gonna make me cry. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're the reason that I do this work, honestly, for stories like that. You can't even put words to what you must have been going through at that time in your life. And if we doing this work has any minuscule part of lifting you up and getting you through those moments. Dude, I am so grateful to be part of that, to be part of your life in that respect. So, yeah, man, you're the reason I do this. So thank you.
One character that has really been a part of my life is this guy right here, Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. And before we talk about this, I want to play a little clip from an interview I did with Kane, and he spoke about you. And this is why I think this was eventually going to happen, because almost every voice actor that I've talked to has mentioned your name at least once, or been like, Steve Blum is the greatest, and Steve Blum is awesome. I remember talking to, I think the last person I talked to was Kyle Aberg. People who don't know. He was like, man, Steve Blum is awesome. He really helped me when I got out here. And I was like, wow, like just that story. But now I'm going to play the clip. We were talking about Wolverine The XMen, and Kane had this to say. Tell me if you could hear it.
I'm sitting there, and that's where I got to meet Steve Blum, sorry. I mean, who is, I mean, he is Wolverine. I mean, next to Hugh Jackman, you know, there's no, and the thing I always laugh is, if you've ever seen Steve, he could play Wolverine. He kind of looks like him. I mean, he totally could be Wolverine in a movie. So, but yeah, I guess that's the thing I got out of it more than anything, is I got to be friends with Steve, and that, you know, gosh, now we've worked on several series, and we've run across each other at the conventions and stuff, and I was on Rebels for a couple episodes, so.
And yeah, that's what Tom had to say. Shout out to Tom. It was a really great interview.
Wow. I love that man so much.
Yeah, he's so awesome. Oh, God. I remember when I spoke to him, I was also nervous about that one, too. But when we were there, he was really nice. And I hope he's doing okay with everything that he got going on. I remember when I got that news that he had a stroke, I was so nervous. I, flocked. I was like, oh, my God, I'm really scared. Have you spoken to Tom at all since that happened?
I haven't spoken to Tom, but I've been in touch with his family, and I check in with them every now and then, and they said that he's doing great. His road to recovery is going to be really long. He has to learn to speak again, and that's really rough. But he is in good spirits. His mental faculties are all there. He's still just as smart and sassy and hilarious as he's always been. But he's got a long road ahead of him, and I hurt for him, because he's such a huge presence, and has been a huge presence in my life and my career. I've been a big fan of him forever, and that voice can't be silenced. We need him back. We need him back really badly. So yeah, he's very dear to me. He's like a brother to me. So yeah, it's tough to see him going through that.
That's awesome. I was looking for updates for a while. So thank you for telling me that you have been in touch with him, and that he's doing good. But yeah, he does have a long road ahead of him. But let's turn it up the mood a little bit. And I wanted to ask, do you think personally you were destined for the role of Wolverine? Because a ton of people have said online, I remember when I shared the interview, there was a comment there like, some people are born for the roles. Mark Hamill is Joker, Kevin Conroy is Batman, Steve is Wolverine. And a ton of people agree with that sentiment. So in your own opinion, do you think this was kind of the role meant for you?
Certainly if you're considering the voice print, because that's right, my wheelhouse. It feels good, it's natural. I didn't have to push that too hard. And that was the voice that I heard in my head when I was reading comics when I was younger. I grew up in a comic book store, so that was the voice that I heard in my head. So in that respect, yes. But on the other hand, we don't own these roles. These are all written by somebody else and created by somebody else. And a lot of people have played Wolverine expertly. So I'm fortunately one of a very exclusive tribe who has gotten to play Wolverine, and I'm very grateful for that. So I can never, with any degree of accuracy, say that I was destined to be the Wolverine. I'm one of many, many Wolverines. And like Hugh Jackman is my on-camera Wolverine. Nobody else could do that role for me as a fan. And I love the other interpretations of Wolverine throughout the years. Everybody's interpretation has been really interesting and different and exciting. And I've met a lot of the guys who have played Wolverine before at conventions. So I'm just excited to be part of the gang. That's all.
Right, yeah. I could imagine what it's like to be part of like such a character, and just to make it another personal story, I grew up on your Wolverine like that. My first encounter wasn't Cal Dodge, the original X-Men series. It wasn't Hugh. It was you. I grew up on your Wolverine. Like, I love Wolverine because of your interpretation of that character. I have the DVD right here, but Wolverine and the X-Men right here. I love this show so much. I was heated when I found out it got canceled, and then because I really wanted to know, and I talked to Tom Kane about it. Like, did you guys know what was gonna happen next season? He was like, no, we didn't really know, because there was a lot going on politics wise about the apparently, like, they sold the rights for the show, and it got jumbled up, and lawyers got involved, and they shut it down. Yeah. So, which really sucks. I really wanted to know what to do with, like, Charles. Like, did he ever come back? Was he, like, just stuck in that dimension? There's so much that I really love about that show. But I grew up on Wolverine and the X-Men, and I got into comic books because of Wolverine and because of your interpretation of that character. And I love the X-Men so much. And even though the movies have been hit or miss for me a lot of the times, I still will always be an X-Men fan. I remember for a while in the comic books, it was Inhumans. And I was like, this is garbage. Can I have mutants and X-Men? And then they got the rights, and then they could, of course, make more X-Men comics. And I was so happy. But you don't really hear about the Inhumans anymore. But
no,
that's how Marvel treated them. But I'm a huge Wolverine fan. There's been so many. Like, I talked to David Kane. He was Wolverine for a little bit, and it was like a Marvel beat 'em up game that was not the greatest, but he did a great job. The Scott McNeil and X-Men Evolution, or there's been so many who've done an amazing job. Mark Hamill was Wolverine for a video game. It's like, there's so many people who have really brought their heart and their all to these characters. So
Michael Richardson even played Wolverine for one quick moment.
Yeah. Oh yes, he was Wolverine in that Black Panther.
Comic. Yeah.
Yep, that comic thing. I got to watch it, but it looked really cool.
Yeah.
Throughout the years of your time playing Wolverine, you've been playing Wolverine since X-Men Legends. You can see him right there, standing next to Storm. Throughout your years of playing Wolverine, what has been your favorite version to play, or had the most fun playing?
Oh man, that's tough to say. Well, Wolverine and the X-Men was an amazing experience just because the cast was so phenomenal. Actually, there are two moments I can say. Any time working with that cast was incredible, but I don't even know what his title was. I guess it was executive producer, Craig Kyle, who has now gone on to Marvel feature films. He used to come into the room. He was so passionate about this, and generally the people on the other side of the glass stay on the other side of the glass, and the cast is in there. Craig, if something wasn't hitting the passion buttons the right way in his mind, he would just go ape shit, if it's okay that I say that here.
Oh no, yeah, go ahead.
The veins in his neck would come up, his temples would start throbbing, he'd turn bright red, and he'd come in the room. He goes, "You don't understand! People are gonna die!" And he put the F word in there. Just pace back and forth around the room just to try to pump us up to get the right emotion going sometimes. And I'd never seen that on a show before. It was amazing. And all of us, we loved him. We weren't intimidated to the point, where we go, "Oh crap." We were just going, "Okay, yeah." We're taking it in the spirit it was meant to be, because all of us were fans too. It was so exciting to see somebody so passionate about it. They were willing to do that, where he was like on the verge of a heart attack, man. That guy would just scream, eyes bulging out of his head. It was phenomenal to be part of that. And just the cast, oh my God, everybody in that cast was just stellar. Tom Kane's voice coming in when he was working in Kansas City from his home studio, and they would pipe him in, and it'd be like the voice of God coming into the room. It was amazing. All of us would go, "Oh, it's Tom!" But the one other thing that I would say was really fun working on Wolverine projects was on Hulk versus Wolverine, on the movie, with Fred Tatasciore, who was one of my dear, dear friends. And Fred and I, as the Hulk, he would be standing next to me at a microphone, and usually the microphones are about 3-4 feet apart, something like that. Well, they actually had to spread our microphones further apart because Fred is a very physical actor like I am. And every time we were throwing a punch in that movie, we were literally throwing the punches, and they thought we were going to knock each other out. And Fred had really long hair at the time, and he sweat a lot because he gets so deep into it. he seriously hulks out when he plays the Hulk, and his hair was just dripping wet. And at one point, he just did this giant punch, and it was almost like slow motion hit the room, where his hair sort of spread out above his head, and just this spray of sweat all over me. And I'm kind of going like this, and you'd think, oh, gross, that's disgusting. But I was thinking, oh yeah, bring some of that. Yeah, I want some of that Hulk sweat in here, because that's just going to make my performance better. And oh my God, there's just nothing better than working with somebody who goes that deep. Fred and I have both passed out screaming in studios because we push so hard. And to work with people who are that passionate, like I was saying about your passion, that's the thing that really drives me, because I'm fueled by that in sessions like that, where we have to get that energy all the way up, because there is no in between. And for me, that felt as close to the comic book, the original comic book, viscerally, because Wolverine actually stabs, he draws blood. You didn't see that on screen before that, at least not in animated form. And to me, that really brought it to that level where it realized what was going on in the comics for me in real time. It was amazing.
Well, that was going to be what my next question was, because I remember Fred was talking about how during recording Hulk versus Wolverine, he said that he was seeing stars because he was going so hard into the screams, and you could definitely feel like when you hear the Hulk say, "Ooh," like you feel like Fred is putting his all into that character. And I was gonna ask you, has that ever been the case when recording Wolverine? Like, did you ever be like, "Oh my God, I'll fade it"?
Many times, yeah. In fact, in every studio I think I've ever worked as a Wolverine, I generally stand up when I record, and I'll always bring a chair next to me so that I can lean on it, just for when those moments come when I feel like I'm lightheaded or I'm going to pass out. And I know that it's going to come when I'm doing Wolverine, because I do push as hard as Fred was talking about it. Yeah, I see stars. And Fred and I actually passed out on the same day auditioning for a SpiderMan game. I don't remember which game it was, but I was auditioning for some evil villain, and it was some screaming thing that I had to do. And I passed out. I went down to the floor. They actually recorded the whole thing. There's a whole story behind that, where the engineer was passing it around to different studios, and they were playing that back for me as a joke. It was terrible to listen to. But Fred was there the same day, and he was screaming for some other villain, and he passed out in the studio too, same day, because he pushes so hard. And both of us booked roles. I didn't book that role that I was auditioning for, but I booked something else on the game, and he booked something else too. And the joke between Fred and I was always that one of our characters was invariably eating the other character, because we play a lot of monsters too. So whenever we'd walk into the Wolverine sessions, one of us would say, "Hey, I ate you today. You were delicious." It was, just this goofy thing that we did. It was very funny. So yeah, I have a very special bond with him that is unlike any other actor in the industry.
Oh, that's so awesome. Of course, y'all went on to do Call of Duty and played those zombies characters that we're definitely going to get into. But I have one last question about the character of Wolverine. Wolverine The XMen, obviously, like I said, got canceled and stuff. And shows come back every time. Like, fans push for so hard. Like, Young Justice, which was another show you were on, as Count Vertigo, came back because of so much fan pushback. And people are trying to get Spectacular Spider-Man back on the air. And we're actually hearing rumors, I think it was sometime early 2019, late 2020, that there are rumors of the original 1990s, X-Men animated series coming back to Disney Plus. So I was going to ask you, if they were to decide to bring back Wolverine and the X-Men, how would you want them to bring it back, or try to bring back the fan base?
Well, I think it would be a different show. I think that the corporate rights on that are just too convoluted for them to be able to continue that show, and that breaks my heart, because we're going into the age of apocalypse. So what I would love that's what the next incarnation would have been of Wolverine the X-Men. They had, I think, 9 episodes written for the age of apocalypse, and when the show was shut down. There are scripts out there somewhere for that. But they
send it my way too. I want to read that.
Yeah, I don't have them. I never had access to anything. We didn't have access to scripts until the day we were in the booth, and we couldn't even take them home with us. So it was all super top secret. So somebody has those scripts somewhere in their files. But if Wolverine the X-Men were to come back, I would hope that they would kind of pick it up where it left off. It would just be a different corporate structure, that's all. But I would hope that Craig Kyle would be involved in that, and original cast members. It would be amazing if we could get that cast back together again. Same for Spectacular Spider-Man. And there were quite a few shows that ended before their time because of a corporate decision, and it just broke all of our hearts.
Yeah, with the Sony deal is why Spectacular Spider-Man, God. And then they replaced it with Ultimate Spider-Man, which was okay, not the best.
Yeah.
It wasn't no Spectacular Spider-Man. Josh Keaton as Spider-Man.
He was amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
James Arnold Taylor as Harry Osborn. Like, there was so much going on. I remember my little brother was like, "Hey, Joshua, even because I have the complete series, like all of the DVD, like all the seasons," and my little brother was like, "Hey, Joshua, some of them are missing," and I was like, "No, they're not missing. It didn't get finished." And he was heartbroken. So get on that, guys. Another character I want to talk about is Spike Spiegel from Cowboy Bebop, and I just started on that show. One of my dear friends loves that show to the core. I remember she was like, "Oh my God, Spike Spiegel!" She was freaking out, and I was like, "Yes, Spike Spiegel." And now that I'm not finished, I love Spike, and I have a Spike Spiegel t-shirt. And I want to focus mainly on the live action TV show, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Now, when it comes to me and live action for cartoons or anime, I'm very hesitant because I've been burned so many times. Avatar: The Last Airbender, Dragon Ball Evolution, Street Fighter. Oh my gosh, we could go. The list can go on. Full Metal Alchemist was turned into a Death Note. Awful series on Netflix. Do not watch that. And I'm just really nervous how they're gonna incorporate it, because as we just heard, for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the original creators left because of what Netflix wants them to do. So I'm very nervous and hesitant when I hear cartoons are getting made or anime into live action. So I wanted to get your opinion on it. What do you think they have to get right in order for the show to be successful?
Well, it's not going to be the same show. I think that's the first thing that we have to consider as fans, is that it's going to be different. There was an alchemical moment where it was like stars colliding for that show. The music, the cinematography, the scripts, the film noir look, the cultural references in that movie, in the series. I don't know if they can get that lightning in a bottle back to that degree in a live action thing, but they're going to get something else. And that something else, I think, is going to be pretty spectacular, just based on some of the people that I know who are working on that project. I know some of the writers on that show. I know some of the producers on that show. I have been in touch with John Cho personally through social media. We were even going to tour the set when we were in New Zealand last time, but John broke his leg, and it was 2 weeks before we went there, and so they shut the whole production down, so we didn't get to do that. But just based on the passion of the people who are working on it, I think it's going to be pretty amazing. And the other thing that I think would have been a restrictive factor back in the day when they were going to try to do the Cowboy Bebop movie, the live action version of it with Keanu Reeves, was that it was just too expensive to produce. And I actually met him in an airport, and we talked about it, and I fanboyed. It was a crazy moment. I was off to Europe. He was going to New York or something. And I had to tell him in that moment how excited I was to see what he was going to do with it. And he had not only watched the show and loved it, but he had optioned the script for it. And he said the problem was the technology was just so expensive to create that environment at that time. It just wasn't evolved enough. And he said the script is amazing, but it would cost $500 million to produce. And by the time it ever gets greenlit, if it ever did, he'd be too old to do his own stunts. So I thought, all right, well, Cowboy Bebop movie ain't happening. So then I hear that Netflix picks this thing up, and that they're shooting in New Zealand, and they've got some really great assets that they're putting into this, and that John Cho was chosen, who I thought was a really interesting choice as Spike. And his heart is really in it too. And so I just feel like if Watanabe-san is still involved, I don't know if he is. Originally they were saying Watanabe-san was going to be having some creative input in this. And if they get the music of Yoko Kanno in it, oh my God, this could be spectacular. Honestly, I don't know if those elements are still there or still part of it. They're so secretive about it all. But as a fan, I want to see how this fleshes out. And like you, I'm very hesitant about live action interpretations of really great, beloved shows like that. But in this case, I'm absolutely on board for it. And I will watch it with a completely open mind, and I won't expect it to look or sound or even feel like the original anime, because it's going to be a different thing. So I don't even know what the storylines are going to be. So it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting. And I think they've got a good cast for it. And I'm hoping for the best. And I hope they give me a cameo. Please give me a cameo. If you're watching this, please give me a cameo. I'll play anything.
Well, I guess that answers my question. You're not involved with this right now, as we know of.
No.
At all. Okay. That's
I begged, I pleaded, and no, they have their own way of doing things. It's on camera is a whole different world. But you know, even if they did, I would love to do a voiceover for it. I would love to do like an opening monologue for it, an epilogue for the end of the show. That would be amazing. Or even to play one of the old guys, the old pilots. You didn't fly that mission, you idiot. I would love to do one of those guys on camera, because now I'm old, I can do it. So if you guys are watching this and you haven't finished, please bring me in to do anything. I will wash your cars. I want to be part of this.
I think every fan here would agree, like, we need you in this show, because
and the whole cast. It's a small cast. Let's bring in everybody.
Yeah, like that's one thing that I think would be cool, or at least show like that they care in some form or fashion, that they get the voice actors, or at least people associated as like small little, you know, cameo roles. You know, Stan Lee could cameo in every Marvel movie. Why can't you cameo in it for a little bit? And so I'm just really, what do you think could possibly go wrong with this reboot?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an on-camera guy, so I can't really even be a qualified voice on what can go wrong. I'd rather think about what can go right. Yeah, I don't even want to think that way, because I think that causes the death of a lot of shows, even if they are good. People just don't give them a chance. People will beat a show up before they even have seen the trailer for it, just based on their own preformed opinions. So the only thing I'm going to put out is positive stuff for this show. I want it to be good. I really do. Even if I'm not part of it, I want it to be good as a fan.
I do too. And speaking of shows that got a lot of hate when they came out, Star Wars Rebels, you were Zeb Aurelios in that show. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Steve. I was one of those people. I was hating on it heavy, because I was coming off Clone Wars. I was not like heavily, but my friends talked to me a lot, and I was like, hey, I haven't started Rebels yet, because I never finished Clone Wars. And I was like, hey, how's Rebels? And my friend was like, don't watch it. The art style is bad, and everyone.
Man.
I was like, oh dang, but I'm starting to see a lot of love for it now because of The Mandalorian, which you were also in as a little spaceport voice, which I think was pretty cool. Spaceport operator.
Yeah.
Zeb Aurelios has always been a cool character to me. My friend who got me into Rebels was like, this is gonna influence The Mandalorian a lot, and obviously it did. And of course, it's a live action Ahsoka movie, and we're hearing stuff about that's gonna tie a lot into the Rebels show as a whole, which I really want an animated sequel. I don't know how I feel about them going the live action route. I really want to see it finished in the form that it was started. But obviously I'm not an executive, so who do they care about, right? But for the accent of Zeb, I always loved your voice for Zeb, because it had like a little twang to it, a little something about it. How did you create the accent for that character?
Oh yeah, that was sort of a happy accident, actually. I originally auditioned for that, like we do everything else. I auditioned from home in my home studio, sent them an MP3, and hope for the best. And they brought me back for callback at Disney, and I didn't even realize what the show was at the time. They told me it was Star Wars oriented, but it kind of went in one ear and out the other, because I couldn't believe I could ever have a shot at being part of a really big Star Wars show like that. And so they ran me through the paces. They had me do probably 10 different dialects. We started, the original dialect that I chose was Cockney to do it. but it was so talk back. It was almost unintelligible. And so they said, no, you've got to broaden that out, make it a little bit bigger so that we can understand. Open your mouth, you know. And then we tried German, we tried French, we tried Italian, we tried several different accents from the UK, Australian, Spanish. We tried a whole bunch of different things because it's a Star Wars universe. It could be anything. And what we ended up landing on was something like a South London with a little bit of Australian mixed in. It's basically just a bad UK accent. But it was fun, and it matched the character. What we were really looking for ultimately was something that matched the character's face and body movements and pacing. And the way he walked was a little bit different than most people. It was almost a simian type of walk, as they had those weird legs and stuff. So it had to be something it could, be paced up and paced back, and there had to be a bit of passion underneath it and a bit of growl underneath that. So he could be capable of tearing your arms off like Chewbacca could. He was that character design was actually based on an original Ralph McQuarrie design for the Wookiees. And there was even an action figure made of like a hairy version of what Zeb ultimately looked like. And so we wanted to pay homage to that and make sure that it felt authentic. And I think that was really the goal more than anything else. The accent was secondary to it. It was just more the feel. And when we hit the right feel, everybody in the room kind of went, oh yeah, that's it. But I still didn't know I got it, even at that time. I didn't know I got it for months later. Wow. So I was actually at a Transformers convention. This is a funny story. I was in England, in Birmingham, England, at a Transformers convention. And when I got the call that I had booked it, and they still didn't call it Star Wars at the time. It was under some other thing. Everything is codenamed, and the characters are codenamed. Everything was, I think it was called Wolf at the time, because Dave Filoni is such a Wolf fan. And walked into this booth in somebody's home studio. It was like this Ma and Pa and Kettle, sweet old English couple in their home on the second story in a booth smaller than this, probably half the size of this. That was super hot. And they put the script in front of me, and I remember looking at the script and seeing stormtroopers on the script when every other incarnation of this I had seen was just troopers, or they had blocked out anything that looked like Star Wars. And I had actually forgotten that I had auditioned for a Star Wars thing. It didn't occur to me that this was the same project. And so I go into that room and I see stormtroopers, and I'm like, stormtroopers, this is Star Wars. Oh my God, I booked a Star Wars show. Oh my God, I booked a Star Wars show. And I had to go through my whole fanboy moment and get that out of my system. And Dave Filoni's on the other end in LA. I just hear him through the headphones. He goes, okay, yeah, you got that out of your system now. Can we start recording? He goes, oh my God, I'm part of a Star Wars show. This is amazing. Yeah, so.
You've been involved with a lot of Star Wars stuff before that, but it was kind of like small things, like for the original Battlefront 2, you're a rebel infantry person, or you were a stormtrooper in the Force Unleashed video game. So you've done things here and there, but I think this was your first time doing something like major. Like, you're a part of the universe now. And of course, Zeb went on to have an amazing story. Like, we find his home planet, we find out so much about that character. What is one emotional moment that you remember for that character?
I think, sorry, I'm just gonna make a quick adjustment here. There were so many amazing moments on that show. I think the one that translated on camera for me most effectively was what we call the box episode, the episode with David Oyelowo. I never pronounce his name correctly. Who played Callus, and it was basically just me and him for the entire episode, and which was unusual for we were stranded on that moon in that cave, and it was very unusual for animation, in my experience, to do a whole episode with one other person like that. And he's such a phenomenal actor. I got to work with him in the booth, and the experience of seeing this actor who I admired so much, I love his work, just to play together in that room and to see how that fleshed out into such an incredible enemy mine kind of story. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. It was quiet and nuanced and amazing. And the fact that they would trust me with that was such an honor to get to do that kind of a thing. But yeah, man, I mean, anytime we got to go into that booth, every time I got to go in that booth, I still had butterflies in my stomach, and it was such a visceral experience. That was the one other time where the director would come into the room, Dave Filoni, and sometimes in a 4-hour session, an hour of it was taken up by Dave in the room with us, telling us the overarching idea for the story and how he wants this to fit into the Star Wars universe for the fans. He cared that much about it that he oversaw every single detail of that show. And he's an animator himself, so he would be involved in every single element of production. And the passion in that room, it was a bunch of Star Wars nerds in that room on both sides of the glass, to the point where when we introduced that fruit called the Melu Run, I don't know if you remember that big round fruit. It's a rare fruit. We spent a whole episode trying to find on the Melu Run.
Oh, not yet.
Or something. Yeah. Well, we spent probably an hour discussing how Melu Run was going to be pronounced in the series. And they actually brought in a dry erase board and they spelled it out phonetically for us. So whenever it would come up in dialogue, we'd all get it right. It was hilarious. And that hadn't even been done in Star Wars before. Han Solo was pronounced 4 different ways. Han, so just to see that level of detail, he wanted to honor George's vision as George would have done it, and then take it to the next level too. So it was really inspiring to work on that show.
I love Rebels so much, and I'm really glad I gave it a chance. Like, that's such an amazing show, and I'm really glad to see it's getting a ton of love, because each season for me got progressively better. Like, season 4 hit all the marks for me. I cried when, guys, if you haven't watched it, check off, but I cried when they killed Kane. I was crying like a little baby, and then the episode where they like showed the effects of it, I was like, oh my gosh. Or when Darth Maul and Obi-Wan fought in the desert and they finally killed Darth Maul, I was mad because I love Darth Maul, but I was happy at the same time because they did the story correctly. But yeah. I was just so happy, and I'm so glad that the show is getting a ton of love, which it really should have gotten in the beginning. But I know a lot of people are very judgmental when it first starts out. Like, shows start out slow, and usually with the first season of a show, people got to remember, like, it's trying to find its footing and what to do right and how to really get started. And that's the case with the Clone Wars. I mean, I love people love the Clone Wars, but we have to be honest with ourselves. The first season wasn't perfect because it was really trying to figure out how to get to the Clone Wars we all know and love today, and truly dive into those characters and those awesome moments with people like D. Bradley Baker as the clones, or James Arm Taylor as Obi-Wan. Like, it takes time. So I'm really glad that people are starting to love Rebels like me. So I really love that show so much.
Well, thank you for giving it a chance. We put a lot of love into that show.
Have you heard rumors of a Rebels sequel?
There's rumors for everything. Yeah, I do. And I don't take anything seriously because we never know where they're coming from. We're always the last to know, honestly. As the actors, we never have information. So if you're searching for information from me, it wouldn't be accurate, even if I thought I knew. We didn't even know that about Kanan's fate until the end. They didn't tell us. We didn't get that part of the script. We were given 4 or 5 pages at a time with just our dialogue, and then we had to leave the room, and the other actors would come in. Tia and Freddie would come in and do their parts, and we didn't see it until like 2 days before you guys did. They brought us into a private screening room with Disney, and they showed us, and we were sitting as a cast together sobbing because we didn't know that was coming. Freddie and Tia were the only ones in the room who knew, and the rest of us were going, what? No. So yeah, we have no information about that at all. But yeah, I mean, I would come back in a heartbeat if they did it. That'd be amazing. This is one of my favorite things I ever worked on.
Another show that I love, Naruto. As you can see, Itachi, and you played the villainous Orochimaru, and that's another show that my friends had to get me to get onto because I just finished Code Geass, which was another anime you're on. Got here and everything, but I got off Code Geass, and my friends were like, "Hey, Josh, you should check out Naruto." And my brother, I remember him watching it before me, watching it on Netflix and just binging all of it. And I remember being freaked out when I first saw Orochimaru. I was like, this guy's really creepy. But now that's one character that I've always, obviously now he's done like a complete character switch. He's more of a good guy now in Boruto. I'm really glad that you stuck with that character, because there have been some characters that I really liked on Naruto that aren't by the same voice actor anymore. Like Jugo was done by Travis Willingham, and he doesn't do the character anymore. They gave it to Kyle Hebert. So I'm really glad that you stuck with this character that I loved for so long, and I really love Orochimaru as a villain. But how'd you create that like sweet, like majestic voice for him?
That was an interesting thing. I was working with Mary Elizabeth McGlynn. She was directing it, my fiance. So again, she directed a lot of shows I worked on. But at the time, she was playing an incarnation of Orochimaru before I took over as the Grass Ninja. And I loved the way that she had played that character. And they wanted me to take over. And it was one of those characters where I just looked at the body type and I thought, this is the voice I'm going to do this. I'm a very organic actor. So I saw that face. I saw that he was sort of snaky. She said that she wanted a lot of sibilance in him. He was sort of pasty looking, liked to take over other people's bodies and absorb as much jutsu as he could. I didn't see him as a villain, really, at first. In fact, he's just misunderstood. All he wanted to do was collect as much jutsu as he possibly could and make himself as powerful as he could and understand as much as he could. But looking at that character, it was just a natural thing. The first thing that came to my mind was this voice. And it was an opportunity for me to play something very quiet. Most of my characters are big and broad. And Orochimaru, they just wanted down here so that he would be a very quiet threat. He didn't have to push anything. It was until he did. You know, there were certain scenes where he did, but most of the time, he was a very quiet threat, which is, I think, is what made him so creepy and so effective. But that was really based on her first interpretation. I wanted to take that and just take it to whatever level they were going to with based on the animation that had been done before. And my goal in anime is really just to honor the animation that's already been created. With something like Wolverine or Zeb, we get to create along with them in a collaborative process, and they animate to us. Something like Naruto, that's already done before, so I wanted to do something that felt true to the character. If I was watching that silently, that would have been the voice I would have heard in my head. And I heard the original actor, and it's completely different from what I did. But that's okay. Sometimes it's just my sensibility is a little different, and I have to trust that. I have to trust my gut, my intuition. And I encourage my students to do that too for their first read on an audition, to trust that intuitive thing that comes to them as though they were reading a book for the first time and they hear those characters in their head. Do that. That's how Wolverine came to be for me too. That's the voice I heard in my head. So.
I love that character, and I'm glad that they're still doing. From what I know, I haven't gotten to Boruto yet, but he's still in it, still doing his thing. He has a kid now, which is like, what? This is crazy.
I know.
But, how do you hope they tie? Orochimaru can't die because obviously Sasuke went to the room and killed him, and I thought he was gone for good, but he brought him back with Sasuke like electrocuted someone's. No, he put a piece of Orochimaru on someone else, and then he came back to life. So you can't kill him. How do you hope they tie his story, like kind of give it some closure?
I'm the wrong person to ask because I don't even know what the story is other than my parts. I've watched maybe 5 episodes of the 700-something episodes of Naruto.
I'm about to say you're not even there.
I'm not even. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm even looking at. Half the time I walk into that booth, I don't get the script in advance. I walk in there, they give me my lines, and I just go. And I trust the director to give me enough context to make it believable. But I honestly don't even know the storyline. That's embarrassing to say, but I don't. I just don't.
Right, and
don't kill me. Yeah, just keep me going.
Just keep me going.
Yeah.
Another character that you played that I think a lot of people love is, of course, Tank Dempsey, and I have Call of Duty Black Ops 2 right here, which is a game I love. But I remember when the Zombies crew wasn't there because I played World at War, which when you guys first got introduced into the world, and you guys weren't there for a majority of the packs. And I made it a point to not buy any of the DLC until y'all came back, and I saw the trailer for Origins. Bought it day one. I bought it day one. I love Tank Dempsey, and I just want to know, when you guys came back for Origins, did you ever imagine the story would get so crazy?
No, these characters were just supposed to be a fun little side story. We were an afterthought. The whole zombies thing with our particular group of guys was just supposed to be one little fun thing and one interpretation of the game. And the fans really pushed it to where it took on a life of its own. And they wrote that crazy stuff for us, and there wasn't a whole lot of ad-libbing. That was done by the writers. They were amazing, Craig and that whole team. That came out of their crazed alcoholic brains. I don't know where that shit came from, but oh my God, we were just having such a good time taking the characters to those depths. We had no idea.
Right, it's gotten so crazy. And I remember I saw the video where all of you guys, it was you, Noah North, Fred, Tom, were in the room talking about leaving the characters. I remember you were like, I'm screaming over the tears or something along the lines of that. And I was like, no, because at the time, Tank Dempsey is my favorite of the crew. And I remember I would like restart the game until I got your character. Like I'd restart the game over and over again until I got Tank Dempsey, and then I was satisfied. And I remember I played Call of Duty before we got on, and I was Tank Dempsey in the Origins, and my freaking PlayStation 3 controller was like broke right here, a little joystick, and whenever I run, I shoot and crouch. But I still had fun because I love that character. I'm really glad that you brought what you brought to that character. You brought that like military, like I remember watching. Sorry, I'm all over the place on my brain, but there's a video you promoted for a veterans thing, and I remember hearing your voice, and you said, "Click it," and the room shook, like you heard the room shake. I was like, "What the heck is going on?" And I was like, pushing it. I love that type of stuff for actors, and I just love that. One franchise that you've been franchise I want to talk about is Transformers. You've been in Transformers for a very long time, of course, as Starscream, and then Bumblebee as Wheeljack, even though if you like blinked, you would have missed it. But I love your Wheeljack. I'm glad that they brought him in, because that version in Dark of the Moon was, we won't talk about that. Have you watched the Transformers movies before?
Some of them. Yeah, not all of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 6 of them now, so there's a lot
Something
of them.
like, yeah.
Out of all the Transformers characters you play, Starscream, Shockwave, Swindle, Barricade, am I missing someone? Probably am. Wheeljack. Who would you grab a cup of Energon with?
Wow. Man, Starscream would be a terrible choice to do that, but I have to say Starscream, just because he's so ridiculous. He'd probably poison my Energon. I don't know.
For that voice of Starscream, did you grab that voice from the Green Goblin in Spectacular Spider-Man?
Not intentionally, no. Starscream for me was a hybrid voice. I looked at what had been done before. Chris Latta, of course, being the number one, he was most people's Starscream and will always be a lot of people's Starscream, and that's fine. But they wanted a completely different interpretation of him. They wanted him to start out dark and capable of extreme violence. In fact, I think in the first episode, he ripped out Cliffjumper's Spark. But Charlie Adler was playing him in the movies at the time. And I'm a huge fan of Charlie. He's a dear friend of mine. And I loved his interpretation of it. I loved his modernized interpretation of Starscream so much. He really put that capability of doing great harm into the voice, along with the ridiculousness that we all know and love about Starscream. So they wanted to find sort of a happy medium with that. And I actually called Charlie before I took that role, and I asked him why he wasn't playing it, because I just loved his interpretation. He was doing other things, and he said, go ahead and do the role. We all do that for each other. But my first impression of Starscream was the dark, very vicious, plotting version of him. And eventually we certainly got into that Chris Latta territory where and it sort of hit that Green Goblin-esque thing, which I love. I love that Green Goblin sort of feel to him when he goes to that place. But that wasn't the initial intention. It was really supposed to be more focused on just the plotting Decepticon that he was. Although we found out pretty early on, I think in his first or second season, I don't remember, but the first time they really had me scream as Starscream, and that girly scream, that super high-pitched girly scream, the executive producer came in on our break and he said, by the way, we love torturing you. We love it when you scream, and we're going to write a lot more of that. So just be prepared that when you come to these sessions, make sure you don't have anything the next day, because we're going to make you scream, because it just makes all of us turn into little fangirls when you do that. Okay, fine, sure. And so we got to play. Starscream was so much fun because he was so multi-dimensional for a character that really isn't necessarily built like that from the outset. He was what he was during the Chris Latta days, but he had some come to Jesus moments in that show, we thought, and then of course he'd go back to his old ways. But it was super fun to play. One of my favorite characters ever to play, and that cast was ridiculous.
You got to be with Peter Cullen and Frank Welker. Oh my, like those are, when you think of cartoons, you think of those two people. Like what? Oh, I remember I saw you taking a picture with those two, and I was like, oh my God, what was going through your mind when taking that? Because those are like the guy.
They're the biggest of the big in my mind, especially Frank Welker. Peter Cullen, he's an entity unto himself. There's nobody like him. I just remember the first time Peter walked into that room. I had met him before because we had worked on Toonami things opposite one another for years. But when he walked into that room for the first time playing Optimus, and he stepped up to the microphone, he's not a huge man. He's this very fit, thin, older man with a Hollywood mustache, very well dressed, presents himself very conservatively, shakes your hand, speaks very quietly, and he stands up to the microphone and clears his throat because he was a smoker. And he would just go, all right, are you ready to go? And they'd push the button, he'd do something like transform and roll out. And the whole room, like you were saying before, would shake, it would vibrate. We could feel it in our guts. And everybody in that room, including Frank, who he had known for 40 years, would kind of go, oh my God, that's amazing. We'd all turn into fan squealing little, boys and girls in that room. It was ridiculous. And then seeing the two of them together, to see Frank and Peter together as old buddies, they love each other. And to see them together in this context was an amazing thing to behold. It was like watching a legendary moment of Hollywood unfold before your eyes. And there were moments where both of them would go into almost like a vaudeville routine on our breaks. And they'd be talking and bantering back and forth and doing impressions. Both of them are really great impressionists. The whole room, which normally would be on a very tight schedule. Time is money in those rooms, and there are a lot of people in that room on both sides of the glass. Normally, we wouldn't have a lot of time to screw around between takes. But when those guys would start telling stories and have that banter going back and forth, everybody in the room, including all the suits on the other side, would just kind of go, oh my God, just let it roll, let it roll. Oh my God, more of that, yes. And we just, we're so grateful to be in the presence of that. And that entire room was a room full of really capable, really good actors too, top of the game actors, and all of us became squealing fangirls in those moments. It was just an incredible place to be, and one of the so many moments that I will just cherish for my whole career. Can't believe I got to be part of that.
Now we're going to get into the fun part of my interviews that I do with all of my guests called Weird and Wacky. We have 1 minute to answer a series of crazy and random questions. No one has gotten to a record of 15 questions, although the championship title is Simon Norfie with a record of 14 questions answered. Do you think you could beat Simon?
I'm not about competition, so I won't even try. But we'll see what happens.
All right. All right. I'm going to start the timer in 3, 2, 1. Favorite topping on pizza?
Cheese.
Least favorite movie?
Oh God. Least favorite movie. Oh man, I don't know. Pass.
Favorite movie growing up?
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Biggest inspirations growing up?
Biggest
inspirations?
Oh, inspiration. Anybody who was, I think, doctors. Any doctor that performed. Yeah.
Would you rather eat bees or scorpions?
Scorpions, because I love bees.
Weirdest food you've ever eaten?
Chocolate-covered crickets.
Superpower you wish you had in real life?
Flying.
Favorite song growing up?
Led Zeppelin. I don't know. Oh, am I done?
Yes, 1 minute.
Crap.
Goodbye. You answered eight questions. Yep, 8 questions. You did great, Steve. You did great. And this will be my final question to you. And before I ask, I would just like to say, this has been so much fun getting to talk to you. Like I said, I've been a fan of yours since I was a little kid. You've done things that have inspired me as a human being, things you've said, things you've done, the way you treat fans, the way you've treated me, there's been so much that I love and admire about you. I'm not afraid to say that I really have a lot of love for you for what you do and how you do it. And I'm really glad I got the chance to speak to you. So again, thank you so much. And I'm really hope you enjoyed your time here. My final question.
It was really fun. Really, really enjoyed this. It was awesome.
My last question, which I always ask, is what is your current message to the world during these current times that we live in? Obviously, there's a lot going on around the world. There's a ton of things. There's a pandemic going on. Laws are being changed. There's just so much going on around the world. What would you say to people who are in need of hope?
Well, I would say that there's always room for kindness. There's always room for decency. And I think that those two things have been sabotaged, I think, by the last several years and by what's transpired recently. The hate and the anger and the fear that's gone on has really sabotaged how we feel about one another. And I think that kindness and decency are so fundamental to living a decent life. The one other thing that I would just add to that is stay in gratitude. Find something to be grateful for, because there's so much to be angry about right now. There's so much to out there that could potentially bring us down. But if we find even one small thing to be grateful for each day, say thank you to people. Share your love. Express your love for people too in your life. Even friends. It's okay to tell a friend that you love them. Do that, and that's the thing that's going to get us through this, honestly, because all that negative stuff is just based on fear. That's all that is. And underneath all that, there are still good people out there. I have to believe that, and I'm going to work every day to find the good in people.
Absolutely. I make that a goal of mine to just reach out to people, definitely during times like this, because I know when I was going through my fits of depression and suicidal thoughts, I have thought about doing harm to myself, and there was a long period where I just needed like someone to check up on me and be like, hey, how you doing? And that made a world of difference. So please, guys, listening to this, listen to me and Steve, because please check on a friend. You never know what's going on with someone. One of my best friends was like, he reached out to someone and he was about to kill himself, and he didn't know that, and he reached out to him just in the right time. And that's important. So guys, please show love and do what is needed. There's a ton of people who joined here, a ton of fans showing you love, Steve. They love this interview. What did this say? Oh, someone says Tank Dempsey coming to Black Ops Cold War. He can't tell us. He will kill us. No, I don't. He can't tell us. You're gonna have to find out and see. And yeah, Steve. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Steve, is there anything you want to plug before you head out?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've got my school at bloomfoxstudios.com. Tuesday night, we have Lorraine Newman coming at 6:30. And then on Wednesday night, I'm doing this amazing class with this lady named Ani Kiko, who is, she's unbelievable. She is potentially life-changing. I don't even know how to describe what she does. She's a professional kinesiologist, and she works with the science of sound. And we're going to be doing a 5-week workshop starting on Wednesday night. And it's on my website. We're promoting it now on Facebook and on the socials. But you can find that through bloomfoxstudios.com. We're reaching out and finding all these other modalities to help people find success in their lives in every possible way. So join us for that if you can.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who is showing you love in the comments. Thank you for showing love. Always, you guys can find me here and on my YouTube at Jantmor. Thank you so much, guys. I love each and every one of you, and I will see you on my next interview. Bye, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you, everybody.